Hello everyone and welcome to a very special edition of TechZulu Live. I am Amanda Coulong and I am sitting here with Kamran Pourzanjani, who is the now CEO of a company called Bestcovery. And you may also know him from a, well, little company called PriceGrabber. So just little company, of course. So how are you, Kamran?
I'm doing good. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks to Coloft for allowing us to do this wonderful event here. We've got a house full of people. I don't know if you can kind of see all the heads here, but we have the live audience here as well as all of you joining us. So if you would like to participate in the conversation, you can join us in the chat room. And also make sure you're following TechZulu on Twitter and use the hashtag TZLive if you would like to submit any questions. So without further ado, let's get into some good discussion here. So Kamran, what I love about what you've done is you are a flagship in terms of LA tech. So, no pressure, right?
It's more like a dingy little boat, but
oh,
thank you.
Not a dinghy, not a dinghy. I mean, I don't know much about boats, but definitely not a dinghy. Maybe a cruise ship.
Maybe.
Yes, cruise ship.
We'll negotiate.
Going to the Virgin Islands. I would like
good.
that. I like that. So you started this little company called PriceGrabber back in '99. Is that roughly when it was? So Internet 1.0, as we like to say, and then it was about a 6-year window between when you started it with, I think, around 1.5 million in angel funding, and grew this massive online shopping comparison site that ultimately sold to Experian for almost $500 million. Now, didn't you beat Matt Coffin?
Well, it's hard to beat Matt, but I think in this instance I did. So.
For those of you who don't know, Matt Coffin sold LowerMyBills.com. If you remember those days, little dancing guy, Matt Coffin. Another wonderful guy here that spends a good chunk of his time here in LA. So, I mean, let's start there. I mean, 6 years. I mean, did you ever think when you started PriceGrabber that it would grow to the lengths that it did? I mean, the number of uniques that the site had. I mean, just the way people embraced it back in those days when people were just starting to shop online, really. Did you ever think it would become what it did?
It's a good question. Yes, it's definitely overnight success, right? It only took 6 years, so everybody talks about, like, when people meet me, oh, you're an overnight success, and I always say thank you.
You always say thank you. See, he always says thank you.
And so it did take 6 years. But interesting enough, this was 1999, and everybody hyped all big numbers, right? If you remember, there weren't large enough numbers. Actually, they came up with the number of Google, right?
Yeah.
Became a company. So the bigger the numbers, the more interesting these internet companies sounded. And so I remember putting a business plan with my partners together, and the numbers were really lofty. And it's interesting, really 5-6 years into it, we went back and said, well, let's go look at this business plan that we put together. And it was amazing how close we came to some of the numbers and how close the company came to the vision we had from day one. So it was really interesting in how things developed. But was it amazing? It's amazing. Was it a surprise? Is it still blowing my mind? Absolutely. Every day I think about it. I mean, it's really powerful when you think 26 million people come to your site and you're helping them find what they need. You're helping them do what they're trying to do. In this case, comparison shop, and it was really, really amazing feeling. And it's amazing when you run into people and you say, well, I work for PriceGrabber, and people say, well, I know that site, I've used it, and it's great. I remember once even coming through immigration, it's like, what do you do? Well, I work for PriceGrabber, and it's like, really? I use PriceGrabber? And it was amazing. So it's really, really rewarding to hear that.
Now, when it started at the time, what were some of the original challenges that you went through, some of the hurdles, especially when you looked at the way the internet was in those days, and how did you get the masses to be comfortable with it, to accept it, to trust it? I mean, those are intangibles that are very hard to bring out. Did you find that any one thing worked? I mean, what did you learn from that process?
Yeah, so I mean, the challenges are, very similar to the kind of challenges you see today. Lack of money, lack of this, a lot of competition, just getting good resources, so on and so forth. So there are a lot of different challenges along the way. back then, the interesting thing was because I was sort of like a old school kind of guy, I couldn't understand this eyeball thing. Everybody's like, hey, let's do eyeball, and it's like we want to generate revenues, so we want to send you legitimate leads that will buy things, and we really don't want to do this exchange of traffic. And so at the beginning, it just people couldn't understand that and didn't it's like that we don't get that, and so but we insisted on it, and that actually served us quite well down the road, because once things changed, which was actually in April of 2000, and sort of money dried up and companies were scrambling to come up with revenues. We already had we had a business model that
you had a real business model, and you made real money.
And it did.
And you made it through this thing called this bubble bursting because of it?
We did. And actually that helped us quite a bit. And as you pointed to it, we'd raised only about $1.5 million. And so because of that, we were very much focused on generating revenue, and because of our philosophy. And as a result of that, when things turned around and everybody was cutting their marketing budget, they wouldn't cut us out, because we were just sending businesses legitimate traffic. They were transacting, they were buying things. So that was really amazing, and that helped us quite a bit. The second part of your question, how do you build a following, actual direct users, which PriceGrabber did quite well. Actually, majority of our revenues came from direct traffic, not from SEO, not from SEM. It was just direct, people who typed in our URL. And the way we did it is we didn't take any shortcuts. We really tried to be true to our mission, try to tell people how to best do comparison shopping. We didn't fudge, we didn't take shortcuts. We took the user and put them ahead of everything else. And so that was really a philosophy that was, I would say, in the DNA of every employee at PriceGrabber. All of us were just thinking about users, how to service them, how to serve them best. I give you one example. Remember when pop-ups were all the rage? We didn't have a single pop-up in our as advertising on our site. So this is a company, mind you, that with $1.5 million and very limited resources, and people would come to us and say, well, we'll give you $50,000 if you do this pop-up advertising. And we would say, absolutely, we will not do that. And we could make that decision because we didn't have venture funding. We could make those calls and make those kinds of decisions. That's one example of it. I can spend the rest of the day and tell you how in every instance we put the user ahead of our own interest and made sure that they were getting actual data, correct data, that there was transparency. We didn't hide the best price on page 5. We served it right up front. We said, this is the best price, this is the best bottom line price. And that helped quite a bit. We also invested quite a bit in technology in our product. So we wanted to be at the leading edge of the type of service that we were providing. So we were the first ones, for example, who introduced all kinds of different features in the comparison shopping, whether it was reviews of stores, or it was shipping and tax, whatever have you. We were at the forefront of providing those types of services.
Now, was that based on what your users were asking for? Was some of that just market research, in terms of the product roadmap and what feature sets you wanted to test?
Right. So I mean, nothing. A lot of it was gut, and it's like, what would I want? And and all of us would get together and say, what would make this more interesting? Part of it was just seeing what people were doing. Some of the merchants were pulling shady stuff, right? Yeah. For example, they would lower the price and then jack up the shipping or something along those lines. So we said, well, how do we combat that? So part of it was that. Part of it was hearing from users, and users would write in and say, wouldn't it be nice to have this? And we said, well, that makes sense, and we would add it in. So it's all of the above.
Right. So a huge thing that I hear from you and that I've seen in other interviews, it's so much of who you are as a leader is about, it's about integrity. It's about identifying what your company is core values are really going to be, and what your mission is, what's going to drive the company. And it sounds like in every aspect of business that you do, you maintain that, and you find a way to really spread that culture among the people that work with you. And that seems to be a winning model.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your entire organization has to believe in a philosophy and what you're all about. Now, you have to have integrity in your vision. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily integrity like
Very
price
good
grabber.
point.
Price grabber, for example, our mission was to serve, like I said, the users, and we put users ahead of everything else. But if we were, for example, more of an SEM company, then we had to then optimize the site for that. If we were an SEO company and that was our, then we had to stay,
Right.
true to that mission and say, well, how do we make our site more SEO friendly? And various companies have done this in different ways, and all of them, a few of them were successful and they did quite well. We chose that route and we felt very good about it and we're proud of it.
So here we are, more than a decade later.
Yes, I'm getting old. Thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate that.
Not old. Nobody's ever old, it's just in your mind. But here we are almost a decade later. I mean, not a decade later since you were, still involved with it, but a decade later since the inception of PriceGrabber. Things have obviously changed. The internet has changed, immensely. We have people that are using mobile devices as little mini computers when they're walking around. We've got the advent of, apps right now. Apps are huge, and people are talking about local and mobile and personal recommendations, and so shopping itself has changed a ton, obviously. Why do it again? Why start another venture when quite clearly you don't need to?
Have you seen my bills?
I know, that yacht, Virgin Islands. Anyway, but I always wonder, why do it again? Because we can tell from all of the entrepreneurs that we've ever interviewed here at TechZulu and those that we talk with on a regular basis, it's not easy.
Right.
Obviously, it takes a lot of elbow grease.
Right.
A lot of time, a lot of sweat, a lot of late nights. Why do it again?
It's not easy, but it's a lot of fun, right? I mean, there's nothing more rewarding than starting a company. I've done it several times. I enjoy it tremendously, and there's nothing more fun, rewarding, and just, exhilarating than just creating something out of nothing. That's really amazing, and I really enjoy the process.
Manifesting something out of the ether.
Yeah, so that's fun. I may be a little bit sick, but it's what I like to do. So that's how I have fun.
Don't worry, I won't call you masochistic. Maybe I just did. Anyway.
I think you just did, but it's okay. I'm still smiling, so it's good. So because it's fun, I do it. It is rewarding. And the thing is this internet is changing every day, as you're saying. Things have changed significantly. Some of the things you just touched upon, phone, mobile application. PriceGrabber was one of the first ones to have a phone application, for example, years ago. And we thought like scanning, being able to scan barcodes with phone
the
would be
barcode scanners are really taking off.
And of course, back then, the phones couldn't do that, right? We started with the local solution, right? Telling people where they could buy things locally. And of course, the infrastructure was not there because all these companies, these retailers didn't have that information. But now more and more, this type of application is possible, and so you can do it. And actually, really, problems have changed. If you think about it, so Bestcovery, why did I specifically start Bestcovery? Well, Bestcovery, really, to me, it's a site that helps consumers declutter the internet, right? So there's just way too much information out there, for my taste at least. I'm a lazy guy. I like to just get to the skinny of it. I want to buy a vacuum cleaner. I want to make sure that I'm buying the right one for my, low shag carpet. What is the right one? Do I want to spend 3 days going through all kinds of material and read it and still not know what to buy, or do I want a trusted source to tell me what to buy? So it's a different problem that we're solving. Back then, there wasn't enough data. Today,
there's too much.
One can argue that there's too much. There's just way too much for us to process, and we all want to do the smart thing, but can we do that in a faster way as opposed to spending 4 days on it? So it's a different problem that we're solving, and it's really as a direct result of the internet changing.
I like that you're saying you're solving a problem in a very different way, because you do have all of these other recommendation engines and whatnot that are tapping into the social piece. They're basing your recommendations off of what your friends are saying, what your family is saying, the fact that you have that trusted inner circle. And while that's well and good in a lot of ways, you know, a lot of it's personal preference. A lot of it is, I personally want expert information, especially as it relates to things like, okay, fine, I'm going to tell you all that I'm a cat lady and I need to take my cat back home with me for Christmas and I need an airline carrier. I'm being dead serious right now. I need to get